Welcome to the Program Design Podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Monique, teacher and curriculum writer turned program mentor and business strategist for coaches, educators, and online experts. Whether you're looking to create your first ever group coaching program or scale your current offer for more freedom, revenue, and consistent income, this is the podcast for you. Here you'll find practical strategies and encouragement mixed with a bit of manifestation and intuition to help you grow and design a program you absolutely love. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Program Design Podcast. In this episode, this is going to be specifically for you if you are a therapist and what you need to know before designing your group program. Now, if you're not a therapist, this will still be very relevant for you. No problem, you can still listen, but I am keeping this in mind specifically if you are a therapist, because what I've noticed, I have worked with a number of therapists now. I actually almost became one. And I have noticed that there are some specific challenges that come up for you if you have a background in therapy. And I want to address a few of those today in this week's podcast episode, especially if you are thinking about creating that group program. So today, to give you a little, background into what's going on for me, my husband is home today with my kids. He told me last week, he's like, oh, it's Professional Development Day on Monday, right? I didn't know that. But thankfully, he's off with my boys at my mother's and mother-in-law's. So that's fantastic because I was like, oh, I've got a bunch of calls today. How am I going to do this? But I am just feeling so optimistic and excited about my business these days because I have just joined a new mastermind and it is feeling just so expansive and aligned and exciting. And I haven't felt like this in a while in my business. I don't know about you if you feel like that when you join new containers. But one thing I've been feeling, and actually you might really resonate with this if you're a therapist, is I had just been feeling kind of like dull in my business. Not like I was bored. I thought, is it boredom? And I'm like, no, it's not really boredom. It was more that I just kind of felt like done in. Like I'd had a lot of challenges. I had some people that they were fine, but they were maybe not happy about certain things in the program. And I addressed some of them I wasn't going to address because I consciously and purposely create the program like this. But I just had some challenges and I was just feeling a little ho-hum in my business and I didn't really know why. And I had a gut feeling that it might be because I hadn't had support in a while. I wasn't sure because I'm in a peer mastermind as well. So I have 3 close friends of mine. We Voxer almost every day. We meet every 2 weeks. And I thought, I don't know if it's really support. But when I joined this mastermind, I just felt all of a sudden like this lift and lightness. And I realized a lot of it was because I was giving so much to my clients, but I wasn't getting that same support back. And I was starting to feel honestly a little bit burned out. Not with my clients themselves. In my program, I was still really enjoying running our calls. I love my clients. I love supporting them. But just generally in my business, I was feeling a bit burnt out, which is really unusual. I love business. And I was like, what is going on with me? And it was really because I think I had been giving so much to other people and not consciously chosen support for myself, which in a way was good because I'd always been in programs and then I'd always been in group coaching programs and I'd had a lot of support for a long time. And then finally, about a little over a year ago, around a year ago, probably, I decided that I really wanted to listen to my own voice and not be in another program. And I took some courses, but not have a specific coach because I wanted to lean into my own self-trust, which was great for a season. But then over time, I needed that support myself of having a coach and having a community container. And I think because my peer mastermind, I love my peer mastermind, it was peer-to-peer. So I support and they support me and it's always that lateral. It's not quite the same as having someone that you're actually paying to be in that program and having that coach and pouring back into you. And peer mastermind and the paid mastermind just have different, functions, for lack of a better word, different roles in my life. And I'm feeling so lit up and excited about the rest of 2026 and what I'm doing this summer. And yeah, I'm just feeling really optimistic and excited about the business now because really it's having that program that I can lean into and get the support and also just the excitement of being in a container with other people and hearing about their businesses. So I'm feeling really excited. So that's my encouragement to you before we dive into today's podcast episode, that if you are feeling a bit done in, do you have support? someone supporting you? Is it time that you need that a little bit again? Just something to consider if you relate to anything I said there. So let's dive into, if you are a therapist turned coach, what you need to know before designing a group program. So the things that I want to share today are specifically for you if you have a therapy background, or like your work is like an umbrella that would fall into therapy. So like maybe you're a dietitian and you do like food therapy type of work. Maybe you're like a speech language pathologist and some of the work that you do falls into some of that therapy umbrella. We're using it a little bit loosely, but the thing I find is when you come from that background, we tend to have the same kind of lens and challenges that come up, and I want to address those in today's podcast episode. So the first thing that I want to address before we even dive into what to think about creating for your group program is that a lot of people start with their group program, but I actually find that there is a step that's missing first that you want to address. And that is thinking about your delivery systems for your one-on-one practice. So if you don't have any other responsibilities in your life and it is a season where you can really like work a lot, for lack of a better word, you can create a group program and keep running your one-to-one the way you're doing it now. But if you have other responsibilities in your life, notably, if you are a mom, if you have like a job, a one-on-one practice, and you want to start a group program, if you have caring responsibilities in some way, or you have other responsibilities in your life, I would just think about, do I have systems set up for me to get some time back first before I start my group? Because what I've noticed is a lot of my clients, my therapists will join me and they are booked out with their one-to-ones and they want to start a group to create more time freedom. But there's a lag time between having your one-to-ones and having your group program, is that creation time. Now, we don't need to create the entire program before you start, but there is going to be a little bit of time where you're creating things and it's going to add to your plate. And so when you can intentionally do things first to get some time back in your day that you can then reserve to your creation of your program, that can help a lot. So what that might look like is there anything that you're doing in your business that you could let go of in some way? So when you have a one-to-one practice, oftentimes we think of ourselves as like self-employed and you're doing everything. But when you move to a group, you're running a business and it needs to become more of like an entity, and you might need to have people supporting you outside of it. So it might be, when you think about delete, automate, delegate, that's kind of like the order to think about it, right? So is there anything on your plate right now that you're doing regularly that you could delete? And what I recommend, when I used to do a lot around time, on saving time and getting time hours back in your day with teachers and with coaches, is I would have you actually time track. Now, I track my time regularly. You might not want to be quite as intense as I am with it, but even just for a week, I use an app called Toggle, and I will track my time and see where my time is going. And you can start to see where your time is going outside of your one-to-one calls. And is there any way that you could delete, automate, or delegate that task? So that might look like when you have your one-on-ones, you have a lot of time to create your client notes afterwards, and you end up spending a lot of your time at the end of the day just writing client notes, and that is feeling draining. So is there any way that you can take more client notes during your calls? Can you make them shorter? So like 50 minutes, like my therapist has a 50-minute long call, like 50, and then she has like a little bit of break in between her next call where she takes client notes. If she needs to go over, she does. So she has a little bit of space, and then it's tied up right there. Because one of the things that I see is like, and this is going on a bit of a tangent, but like we are right in the moment after the call and you can remember things. But if you're taking client notes later, it can take a little while to get back in. So that can take up extra time. So client notes is a big one. Do you need to take as many clients' notes as you're even taking in the first place? Can you delete some of that? The other thing is like scheduling. So do you have a really strong system where people can schedule on their own? Or are you the ones emailing them? Like, do you email them? Are you always making sure, like, are you connecting with your clients over email? Maybe it's time to hire someone like a VA that can do a lot of your client scheduling for you. What can you look at that you can automate? Like get a system, like a paid system, like a booking system, automatic reminders, any kind of automation. What can you delegate to someone else? Or is there anything that you're doing that you actually don't really need to be doing right now and you're going to table it for later because you're focusing on creating your program? So that's the first thing, is like, can you get some hours back first? The next thing was, once we actually get into the program design, is thinking about the difference between a client-led container or program versus a mentor-led one. And I use the term led. You could use the term coach, you could use the term therapist, whatever. But what I find is most therapists I've talked to have a very client-led practice, which means that your one-to-one calls are very focused on what your client needs and you base what you do on them, right? What we need to do to move to a group is you need to create a little bit more structure, and it needs to be mentor-led first. So when you create a structure and a program and a path for people to follow, then you can create a lot more personalization within that. But you want to have a mentor-led path that you're leading the way rather than your clients. Because what I found is my therapist clients who start group programs, but still are inadvertently following the client-led strategy. Like maybe they're doing a lot of Q&As and they're like, oh, my clients need this. Oh, my clients need that. Oh, my clients need this. They're getting more clients and they're just working more hours without getting that freedom because they're always in response mode to their clients rather than having like the clear direction that everyone's going together in. Does that make sense? So the way I think about it is, instead of personalizing and individualizing and following their lead, you can remember the 60-30-10 rule, the 60-30-10 rule. 60%, so this comes from education, it's like 60% of our instruction, if we take an education word, is for like the main group of people. 60% of people can have like that group instruction. So if we're thinking about it in coaching or thinking about it in group coaching, it's like 60% of your clients can just follow what your main program is, like your main signature process, the group calls, the things that you're doing, right? So you have like that 60% is following that main kind of flow, that structure that you create, and then you can create some personalization within that. Then 30% of your people might not fall into that main category, and they might have some more exceptionalities or differences that make their case unique that you need to add more personalization to, and 10% need more than that. Now, you can offer, of course, more personalization that they can choose from. Like in my program, Signature Program Design, we have our main group offer, but then sometimes people also do the more like I don't like using the word VIP, but everyone gets it, so I use VIP. One-on-one, so they have group and one-on-one. It's more of a hybrid, right? So that's one way that you can do it. You can offer that so people can self-select and choose more one-on-one support with mine. But also just thinking like some people, like the strategies, the coaching, the support that you're going to give them might not quite be it. And they might need some more outside the box thinking or personalization or different ways of approaching things. And so that's your 10%. So what a lot of us end up doing is we approach everybody at that 10% rather than realizing that I can create a structure that supports most people and then I can create personalization around it. And that's more of that mentor-led container. Because if you're doing that client-led container, unless you're keeping a very small group, like 5 people, you can easily burn out if you don't have more of a mentor-led container. The next big idea that I want to share today is how to create the same sense of safety that you do with your one-on-one clients. So I wrote an email about this the other day because I was chatting with some clients who were thinking about joining the program. And one of their worries is they do a lot of really fantastic work in person. And they thought, like, how can I make sure that I create that same sense of safety online in an asynchronous way? Or I've had other clients who will say, like, I know I can really hold space for people and create that safe container one-on-one, but what if I can't do that in a group, especially virtually? Right? And so when you think about your programs, you can intentionally create that same level of safety in your programs. It just needs to have a different way of doing it. So I almost became a therapist. That's how I know all of these things. And I've worked with a lot of therapy. I did all my prereqs. I got into my master's and I was going to become a school counselor, but then I ended up finding coaching in the business world and went that direction instead. But what I found, because we had to do a lot of prereqs to get into the Masters of Counseling program that I wanted to get into, is from my clients and from that experience, I can see that a lot of the space and the safety that we hold is like creating that space and holding people and mirroring back like how they're feeling and like creating that rapport and like even mirroring them, all that kind of stuff, right? And it can feel hard to think like, how am I going to do that in a group? But one of the ways, and I shared more in this week's email, but one of the ways that you can think about it is just knowing that you can create that sense of safety in your programs as well, but creating that safety through structure. So when you always have the same predictable rhythm to your calls and people know like, oh, this is how she does it, that can create a sense of safety and feeling like, oh, I know that this is how the group reacts. When I have a problem, this is how people respond. I feel safer knowing that this is like there's less unknowns. You can create that sense of safety that you're always responding. Like this is when recordings get sent out. This is when I have like a weekly email that comes out. This is even how to get support in the call and in the program without feeling like they're overstepping or without feeling like everyone's taking up so much space and there's no space for them. Like creating intentional structure and boundaries can really create a sense of safety for people. And then also intentionally creating that community and intentionally putting in places so that your community is strong. If you're worried about safety, if you have a more personal, like sometimes people tell me like, oh, I don't think a group would work for me because we talk about finance or we talk about something more intimate or personal. And I'm like, you totally can. You just need to create that sense of safety. And maybe that's a stronger community. You just need to be intentional about it. So thinking about if that's something you're worried about, thinking about it intentionally. And that's, for me, often comes down to structure and community. The next big idea I want to share came from a mentor of mine, and I just love it, is that a group actually creates better results than one-on-one if you decide to take on that belief. Does that make sense? So if you have a belief that, well, they're going to get better results one-on-one, but I'm going to create a group because it's more affordable, but they're not going to get the same level of transformation, that is the result that you're going to create, right? But if you're like, no, I know that in a group, we can actually create an even better experience than I offer one-to-one, that is what you will create as well, right? Belief creates your reality. And so when I thought about it, actually at one point in my business, I was really struggling on just offering one-to-one and how to price it. And I didn't know how to price it. And I felt really good about pricing my main program, but I wasn't sure how to offer one-to-ones and things like that once I had my signature offer. And I realized it's because I know my group actually offers a better transformation than I can offer one-to-one. And here's why. And that's why I struggled to price it. So one-to-one, yes, I can absolutely hear you, follow you, offer you really specific suggestions, coaching, it's all tailored on you. 100%, there's no doubt, right? A group doesn't have that as much. But a program, when done well, can offer even more richness and depth than that. So for me, when I think about my program, we have a community of people. So you're not just learning from me, and there's a mastermind element to it too. So you can hear from other people. Recently, we were running a call about how to get more clients, how to get even more one-to-one clients as they were building other programs. And we were talking about different strategies. And I shared some strategies and then other people had some ideas. And one that came out was coffee shop chat. So doing just informal chats at local coffee shops and that already run events and things like that. And then having the people that come to those chats, that coffee shop, come to your chat as a way to connect with people locally to build up your program and grow your program, grow your one-on-one practice, right? And someone suggested that. And then another person thought oh my gosh, I never thought about doing that. Oh, you could do that in universities. Oh, you could do that here. You could do that here. And they were all talking about where their ideal client is locally and how they could find them that way. And that is not a strategy that I've necessarily used. And I wouldn't have said that in a one-on-one call, but in the group container, they were all supporting each other and getting different ideas. So we had this exponential effect, right? I have a clear process that I've refined and refined and refined. So you don't always need to be in a call with me to get support from me, because you can look at my recordings. You can follow my clear process that I've created for it. You can reach out on Telegram and I can support you. Other people can support you. And so you can get support without me always having to be there. Right? I always think about when we create programs, it's we want to multiply ourselves, right? So it's I'm multiplied. You can move forward with support that I can offer you without me having to actually physically be there with you. And also you get support from the whole community and inspiration from the whole community. And so to me, you get actually better results in a group than you do one-to-one. So if you can take on that belief and decide, actually, I know my group program can get better results one-to-one. If that was possible, what would I add? What would I create? How would I structure this? So that really became the reality, and it can really help you think outside the box when you create your program. And then the last piece that I want to share today is how to start thinking about your signature framework and how you articulate what it is that you do. Because what I found is often when we've done one-to-one is we've helped people with so many different problems, right? So many different situations, things that you can help with. And then when you go to create a group, it's hard to know like where to actually go with that, how to look at it. And so I wanted to offer you a few ideas to start thinking about your signature framework and how you're presenting your program. So the first thing to know is people say niche down, right? And I mean, honestly, niching down does help, but you want to lead with one problem and then you can solve multiple others behind the scenes. So when you're thinking about your signature framework, your offer, things like that, right? So for me, I will help you create, like, design and grow your signature program. So if your problem is something like, maybe you don't have a lot of time because you're maxed out with your one-to-ones, or maybe your last program felt heavy and it wasn't quite it, or you felt like you were working really hard and it just didn't feel on, or like you just weren't getting the sales you wanted. Like they're all like variations of that same thing that I'll help you solve with your signature program, right? That's the main thing that I lead with because that's really clear for people and that's what people are looking for. But there are other things that I do behind the scenes too. Like we'll talk about your money mindset. We'll talk about delivery systems. We'll talk about Facebook ads. We'll talk about launch strategies and optimization and marketing strategies and personal brand and all sorts of things behind the scenes. But I don't lead with that. I don't want to be known as the money mindset mentor. Because honestly, my strength really is in program design and growth, but I still solve other problems outside of it that support that main thing. So if you're like, oh, but I can help people with so many different things, that's awesome. Choose one that you lead with, but you can still support them with other things behind the scenes. But it dilutes your message when you're talking about tons of other things. Does that make sense? So that's the first thing, is like starting with that one problem. Then the next piece that I teach are two things, is having a signature process and then having mini result milestones to articulate that process. So your signature process or signature framework, people use them interchangeably. I think about your signature process as like, this is the way that you help people move through your program. It's the unique combination of your expertise and what you offer and what your people need. And it's like the intersection between those two. So it's not all of your expertise, because there's no way that you're going to be able to share that with your clients, even if your program's 6 months, like there's just no way. So it's like the intersection between what they need from your expertise that will help them solve their problem, right? So it's the intersection, and you build it out over time. And that's one of the things I help you do in signature program design, is help you design your signature process. But the thing that I find with the signature process is that sometimes people try to create this visual framework for it and it gets very complicated and it ends up sitting on their computer. It's like, that's kind of like the idea of what they're doing, but no one else can follow it except for them. Do you know what I mean? Like, have you ever seen those frameworks that are like, there's all these details and notes and like circles and it's like too complicated for people to follow? Or people spend all this time creating their signature framework and then it stays on their computer. So your signature process is the way people move through your program and your own unique signature process. Your framework is how you might demonstrate it visually in a simplified way. But your milestones, your mini result milestones, are the mini results that lead to the final transformation at the end. They're the smaller results that lead to the final result. And this is what people can really get. This is what people can really grasp onto, because they're like, okay, she helps me with this, but like, how does she help me? Well, first we do this, then we do this, then we do this, and then we do this. Okay, I can see how her process works. It's like, it makes your process, it drills it down to like its simplest form. So then people are like, oh, okay, she has a process. Oh, I can imagine that. Like, the more you complicate things, the more people are going to be like, I am not following this, right? So when you have a mini result milestone, people can follow your process and it helps you articulate how you are going to help them. So I could say, like in signature program design, first we'll help you really get clear on your program model and your business model, how you want to run it. Then we'll look at refining your signature process, like we're talking about right now. So you feel really good about how your program is running, how you're running your program so that people are really feeling supported, so forth. Then we position your offer and blah, blah, blah. So I'm saying these are like the main pieces that we do in the program, right? I'm not going in depth. It's just like an overview of the main elements. So those were 3 of 5 of my milestones. So when you think about your group program, that comes later, right? That comes later. But the main thing that I want you to get from this conversation is that first, you want to solve one problem and know you can solve others behind the scenes. And then you want to start thinking about what is going to be that signature process for me, what's going to be the way that I move clients through, because we're not going to be doing it client-led, we're going to be doing it mentor-led, right? And so you need to have that structure and that path for people to follow by creating your own signature process. So let's recap what we chatted about in today's episode. So the first thing is creating your group offer alone. I wouldn't recommend it as your first step unless you already do have space. If you already feel quite full in your day-to-day, you might want to audit your time and look at if you can simplify and create some systems or even delete things to get some hours back in your day. Then from there, we talked about the difference between a client-led container and a mentor-led container and why having a mentor-led one will help avoid burnout and can still support your clients and still allow for that personalization within structure, that 60-30-10 rule. And next, we looked at how to create that sense of safety and holding space. So it's really about creating structure and community. And so you really can, this is honestly just trusting yourself, right? That you can still create that sense of safety, even if it's not a one-on-one. And then a group actually can create better results than you do one-on-one. Because if you're creating your program or you're thinking about it, but in the background, you're thinking, oh, but it's still not as good as my one-to-ones. And that's going to affect how you create it, how you share it, right? And so if you're thinking like, no, this is going to be even better, it shifts your whole perspective. And then from there, we want to be thinking about creating a signature process because that's what you'll actually take people through over time and that you create it over time. And that's something I help people with. But the first thing to look at that is solving one problem, leading with one, and then solving others kind of more behind the scenes. So I trust that this was useful for you. If it was, first off, leave me a review. That would be amazing if you could. I would love to hear from you. And if you are a therapist thinking about creating that group program and you would like some support with it, I have my wait list that you can join and you'll be the first to know of when the next intake is for my programs, signature program design. And then my other one is pilot program design. So this is if you're newer in business, you're creating your first ever offer. I have 2 levels of support for you. So do send me a DM on Instagram. My Instagram handle is lauramonique.business. Send me the word waitlist and I can make sure to add you to those waitlists and let you know when our next intake is. So send me a message, leave a review if this has been helpful for you, and I will see you on next week's episode of the Program Design Podcast.